guys, it's Heather. Welcome to my channel. I'm not going to get into a very long, huge introduction, but I do want to tell you I would love it if you could subscribe, like, and I would love to hear from you. So comment your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section. And I also want to say that I do all the research for these cases on my own, and I am limited to internet sources, so some things are not going to be 100% true. I apologize for that. I will, however, give my personal thoughts and opinions during, throughout or at the end of the video, just as an FYI. But I will try my best not to use speculation while I'm telling the case. All right, so this video may contain explicit content, so viewer discretion is advised. Let's jump right in, guys. Today we're going to be talking about the case of Christine Paolilla. You may also know her as Miss Irresistible. Christine Marie Paolilla was born on March 31st, 1986 in Long Island, New York. She was born to a stay-at-home mom, and her dad worked in construction. But when she was just 2 years old, her dad was tragically killed in a work-related accident. Not long after Christine's dad died, her mom started to abuse drugs really badly. So badly that she actually lost custody of her kids, but fortunately enough, some family members of hers were able to gain custody of them. So when Christine was in kindergarten, she started to experience some severe hair loss. She would wake up in the morning and there would be like literal chunks of her hair on her pillow. So not long after, Christine was actually diagnosed with alopecia. And if you don't know what alopecia is, it's an autoimmune disease, and this happens whenever your immune system actually sees your body as an invader and it goes into attack mode. So in her case, her autoimmune disease, her body started to see her hair follicles as an invader, so it went into attack. She lost her eyelashes, her eyebrows, she lost most of her hair. She had just little pieces of, hair and stuff like that. It was really, really, really bad. It was so bad that she actually started to have to wear wigs because she lost almost all of her hair, like I said. So not only was she dealing with her hair loss, but she also had some really bad eyesight. And so she had to wear really thick, Coke bottle glasses. That's what they call it. That's the best way I know how to describe it. This actually made her become a target for bullying, severe bullying. Kids would pick on her so horribly. She would sometimes even have her wig pulled off of her, walking down the hallway or in class and things like that. And I also read somewhere that they were at a pool party, and I'm not sure if it was inside of the pool or outside of the pool, but her wig ended up falling off and people just laughed. Kids just laughed and thought it was hilarious and funny, and they were just really, really mean to her. So fast forward a few years into Christine's teen years, her mom eventually got clean, she remarried, and she actually packed her family up and they moved to Clear Lake, Texas. It is a suburb of Houston. It's a middle to upper class neighborhood, super, super nice, and it's an ideal place to raise a family. She's enrolled into Clear Lake High School, where the bullying continues until she's befriended by two girls. They were the popular girls. They were a year above her, so I believe they were seniors by this point, and she was a junior in high school. Their names were Rachel Coloradus and Tiffany Rowell. But the thing about these girls, they were popular and all that, but they weren't your typical mean girls type popular. They were sweet, charming, funny, welcoming, and they opened their arms to Christine. Rachel was very, very active in school. She was in a lot of plays and she did very well in that aspect of, acting and things like that. But her dream was to become a social worker. Tiffany was also very talented. They said that she was an amazing artist. So these girls see, all this stuff that's going on with Christine, and they basically take Christine under their wings. Christine's mom said not long after Christine met Rachel and Tiffany, she saw a complete shift in Christine's attitude, her personality, her, what's the word I'm trying to look for? Confidence. So her mom said that she spoke very, very highly of the girls. They were always laughing and having a good time. And the girls even give Christine a makeover. They teach her how to properly apply her makeup, because I forgot to tell you that because she lost her eyebrows, she started drawing on her eyebrows, but She didn't have any experience in this, and they look very clownish is how people described it. So they taught her how to do all those things, and she eventually started wearing contacts. She got rid of those huge Coke bottle glasses. And I read somewhere that these girls, Tiffany and Rachel, were so caring, so thoughtful, so loving, so generous that they bought Christine a wig with their own money. Like, a good wig, a nice wig that didn't make her look silly. They made her feel like a normal teenage girl, and this just like boosts her confidence like by a million. And not long after, I believe it was her senior year, she was actually voted Miss Irresistible by her classmates. Her senior year, she started dating a guy named Christopher Lee Snyder. So Christopher actually had a criminal record. I believe he had some drug charges and some charges on his record for like armed robbery. He did some time in jail, and Christopher was like your typical like bad boys of the 2000s. He had like spiky hair. He had like chains hanging down from his pants. He had like the big loose baggy pants. And if you can remember that far back in the 2000s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So nobody really approved of this relationship, not Christine's family, not even her friends did. Not long after they started dating, her friends and her family start to notice a change in Christine. They said that she started to distance herself and that she became very isolated. And of course, not long after, Christine actually started to experiment with drugs herself. There are reports that Chris started emotionally abusing Christine. I read that he even came to her school one time and he was upset about something. I could not figure out why. That information was not there. But apparently he was so mad at her that he like ripped her wig off of her head and he humiliated her in front of like everybody, just like she was humiliated back when she was a child. But Chris's family said that Christine was no angel herself. They actually referred to her as the psycho. They said that when the couple fought, Christine would like literally sleep on their lawn, you guys. I think like some nights she would just sleep, but other nights she would be like pounding on the doors and windows trying to get in. She threatened to like kill the entire family, that kind of stuff. I think by this time, these two were like on drugs pretty badly. Chris's sister said that Paolilla was like an extremely jealous woman. They said that he couldn't even like look at another woman without her like going into a jealous rage. I read somewhere also that one time she licked his face and then spit on him. And if I'm not mistaken, this was because of another woman. Chris even told his family on several occasions that only two things in the world scared him, and that was the cops and Christine. So as their relationship progresses, Tiffany and Rachel start to distance themselves from Christine, you know, from the couple in general. And I'm gonna assume it's because of the toxicity and probably the drug use. But they still really, really cared for Christine. They actually would always tell her that she could do better, that he was no good for her, that she would find someone who was going to love, respect her, and most importantly, treat her with kindness. By this time, Christine is a senior and Tiffany and Rachel have already graduated. Remember I said that they were about a year older than her. So the house that Tiffany was living in was actually her family home growing up. But after her mom died, her dad moved out, I think to go live with his new wife, and he just left the house to her. So as you would, assume, the house starts to become like more of a hangout spot, for Tiffany, Rachel, her friends, and things like that. So on July 18th of 2003, Tiffany and Rachel planned to have a party that night at the house, and they told friends to be there at around 6:30. This is something that they did, it seemed, quite often. So that day, in the early afternoon hours before the party, Tiffany and Rachel, they were both 18. Marcus Priscilla was 19, and his cousin, Delbert Sanchez, who was 21 at the time, They were all hanging out at the house, eating pizza, watching TV, stuff like that. A friend of Tiffany's, who I guess didn't want to be named, so she goes by Brittany, she said that she called Tiffany in the early afternoon hours, but Tiffany's boyfriend Marcus answered the phone and he told her that she was in the bathroom, so she told him that she would just call back. Well, she did call back a little while later, but at that time there was no answer. So about 6:30, Brittany and a group of people show up to the house anyway, for the party. So when they get there, they knock, but there's no answer at the door, and that was kind of weird to them because it's supposed to be a party. They didn't hear anything, but I think the TV, so they were confused. Someone tries to open the door, twist the handle, and the door opens. So Brittany and the rest of them go in and they discover 4 murdered bodies. The way they described the scene was there was just blood, like literally everywhere, on the walls, on the couch, on the ceilings, just pools of blood everywhere. So of course they immediately just run out the house. They go to a neighbor's house where they call police. Well, when police get there, they find Tiffany and Marcus on the couch with their feet propped up. The TV was on, like they were watching TV, and the way they were positioned, it was like that they hadn't expected anything to happen at all. They find Marcus' cousin Adelbert laying in front of the couch, and Rachel was behind the couch, and they actually found a cell phone next to Rachel that had the numbers 911 dialed on it. I have to stop and say that I wish I had more information on Adelbert and Marcus, and I would like to talk to you guys about them and explain them and their personalities and things like that, because they're the victims, but unfortunately I don't have any information on them. There is just like none out there. The only thing that I could find about Delbert was that he actually just moved to Clear Lake like 2 weeks prior to his murder, and he moved from the north side of Houston, and from what I read, he moved here to get away from like violence and stuff like that. So during the investigation, they find that around 40 shots total were fired, and that the 2 girls, Tiffany and Rachel, took most of the shots. Everyone died from gunshot wounds except for Rachel. Rachel actually died from blunt force trauma to her head. They also found that the girls were actually repeatedly shot in their genital area, which they say is a sign of sexual jealousy. It was like extreme overkill. And they said that Rachel was shot on her back, her butt, her legs, and this proves that she was trying to crawl away as she was being killed. After Tiffany and Rachel graduated high school, they started working at a local strip club. And Marcus was allegedly selling coke and ecstasy, and possibly out of Tiffany's home. And he allegedly had ties to the Mexican mafia. So police start questioning neighbors, and they said that around 3:30 they heard like lots of banging around the area, but they all just thought that like somebody was getting their roof worked on, or they were doing something inside of their house, like hammering some things up, something like that. Another neighbor said that around 3 p.m. he actually saw 2 people dressed in all black walking towards Tiffany's home. He said that he did not get a great look at the people. He said that they were wearing bandanas and like, hoodies, but he did mention one thing, that it was male and female, and that the female had unusually large eyes. So that witness works with a police sketch artist, and they come up with a sketch and they plaster it like everywhere. They get about like 400 leads or so, but most of their leads were just going back to Marcus' drug dealing. They talked to the girls' social circle. They talked to people that may have known them at school and everything like that, but they could not find anyone that would want them dead. I feel like they did a great investigation, but there was no evidence, no proof, nothing that they could go off of. So I think eventually they just chalked it up to Marcus's drug dealing. Rachel's dad, however, just was not giving up. He took it upon himself to mail out hundreds of flyers to get on, news stations and everything like that. This man apparently bought every single billboard in Clear Lake and around the Houston area and plastered them with the sketches because he was just not giving up. You couldn't go anywhere around Clear Lake, leave, or come back without seeing those sketches plastered. He even raised $100,000 in reward money himself. So nearly 3 whole years later, Crime Stoppers actually receives a tip that sounds promising. It is from a man who says that he went to drug rehab with a girl, and she told him that her and her boyfriend murdered 4 of her friends. And he gave details that only the killer would know. He said that she told him that one of the victims was trying to call for help and that she beat her with the butt of her gun. That girl turned out to be none other than Christine Paolilla. So investigators do a background check on Christine, and they find that whenever she turned 18, she actually inherited over $300,000 in a life insurance policy that her dad left her. She had a really long arrest record at that time, and they were able to track her down to San Antonio, Texas. So whenever they get there, they find that she's living there with her now husband, Justin Rod. And whenever they walk in to the motel that they were staying at, they said that it was like a murder scene in itself. Because of their extreme heroin addiction, there were literally like blood spatters up the wall, on the ceilings, on the beds, everywhere. It turns out that Christine hadn't left that hotel in like 8 months, and she was actually on the verge of death. One of the detectives said that this room smelled worse than some of the corpses that he had came in contact with. They had like a puppy there, like a dog, and there was like dog feces, there was vomit, there was like trash, old food, just all kinds of disgusting stuff. There was actually even a row of like filled syringes that was like filled with heroin, like lined up on the dresser, just like waiting to be used. Christine's husband, Justin Rott, tells police that he met Christine in rehab, and he said that they eventually bought a condo in Clear Lake, Texas, but one day while watching TV, it was a news segment that came on, and 2 sketches pop up, and he says that Christine starts to like panic. He says that she starts pacing around the room, and he's like, what the heck is going on? And she asked him if it looked like her. She admits to Justin what happened that night, and she tells him that it was Chris's idea to go to Tiffany's home and rob them, I guess because they knew about, the money that they were making as waitresses at the strip club and the drug dealing that was going on in the home. So she apparently agrees to the robbery, but she said that before they walked into the home that Chris actually handed her a gun. She said that they go in, and for some reason Christopher shoots Marcus, and she says whenever that happened that her gun just started going off, like by itself, just started going off, shooting everywhere. After the shooting, they leave the house, but Christine said that she wanted to go back in to make sure that they didn't leave any witnesses. And whenever she did, that's whenever she discovered Rachel trying to crawl away, and she had a phone in her hand. So she said she tried to shoot one last shot into Rachel's head, but that she was out of bullets. She said this is whenever she decided to actually beat her to death with the gun. Immediately after the murders, Chris actually takes Christine to work at Walgreens to work the makeup counter like nothing ever happened. Like she just didn't kill 4 people. After seeing the sketches, Christine becomes like so extremely paranoid that they actually sell the condo, and this is whenever they move to that hotel down in San Antonio. She literally hid out in that motel room for 8 months doing absolutely nothing but heroin, and they survive like, I guess, on fast food and like Cheez-Its, because in the pictures there's like tons of like Cheez-Its and like Reese's and stuff like that. If I can, I'm such a noob at these videos. I'm gonna insert the video clip here of her interview, but if not, I will just insert the audio.
So the gun was in your hand, and what was he telling you? 1, 2, 3?
He was holding on to it too.
Okay, like on top of your hand or something?
Yes, like,
okay, like
I couldn't even tell you how it was, like, but that one that like I was scared and I was like crimping, and then I had made the gun go off, not purposely though, but like it went to like the back of the room because I was just like screaming, just like shaking.
So somehow
like
you
this.
pulled the trigger?
Yes.
Okay.
And he's like, 1, 2, 3, and he's like, come on, you bitch, you bitch, you bitch, and he started just screaming at me, and then, he kept like, it felt like I was like being like jerked, like like.
It was violent when it goes off?
Mm-hmm.
How many times do you think it went off in your hand?
1,000,000 times.
It went off a bunch in your hand?
It felt like 1,000,000 times. Like even like the first time, it felt like 1,000,000 times.
So you were pulling the trigger somehow?
No. Like it's like he has his hand, and my hand was like, I couldn't even tell you how. Like it was.
Okay.
But it was his force that was making
it go off.
Yes.
Okay. Were you hitting anyone?
I don't know.
Come on, it's important. This is important. Okay. You're doing a good job. If you're like this and you're doing it, you know that you're hitting the person in front of you.
Well, we weren't really like in front of anybody.
Were you near anyone?
It was almost back, like, in the middle of them in the door.
Okay, well, somebody was found in that area. You sure there's no one by you?
So throughout the interview, Christine says that Chris basically controlled her. He was really ugly with her, and she really didn't take any responsibility in the murders. She at one point said that he like held her hand, like put his finger over her finger on the trigger. And another time she said that the gun just started going off wildly by itself. She didn't take any responsibility in her actions at all. I'm gonna back up just a little bit. So about a year after the murders, Christopher was actually sentenced to some jail time for some stuff that he did. And during this time is whenever he and Christine broke up. And this is whenever Christine enters the rehab and starts talking to the guy that would eventually call and like snitch her out. And in rehab is actually where she met Justin Rott et al. You might be thinking that it may have been Justin who called the Crime Stoppers tip, but they say that no, he did not, that he didn't have any part in that. Christopher actually moved to South Carolina to live with the woman that he met on the internet. So they go over to South Carolina to, arrest him for the murders, and the woman says that he got word that there was a warrant out for his arrest, and that immediately when he found out, he left the house and all he had on him was a soda and some pills. His body is eventually found in a wooded area, and it was determined that he died by suicide from overdose. During the trial, of course, Christine's defense pointed all fingers at Chris, saying that she had no intent in killing anybody, that she was just there to rob them. He had her so strung out on drugs and all that stuff. But despite their attempts, October 14th, 2009, Christine is sentenced to 40 years to life in prison. And that's it. That's all we have. I have really mixed opinions about this case. I feel like Christine is definitely where she needs to be, and she needs to stay there for a very long time. But I wonder if her life would have been a little different if any of this would have even happened. I know that drugs play a huge role in the way people act, and they make you do some really, really stupid shit. But it's no excuse. She's where she needs to be. She killed, the people who cared about her probably more than a lot of people did. These girls opened, their hearts, to Christine, and they just loved her so very much, and they just wanted her to be loved and accepted and all of that. She was like, I don't want to sound mean, but she was like a little ugly duckling, and a scared, timid, nobody. And I just feel like they did so much to try to better her life, and to repay them like that was really, really crappy. Why? That's all I got for you today, guys. So I hope you voice your opinions down below, and you could also let me know what other cases you would like me to do. That would be awesome. So until next time, guys, be safe.